What's the most successful lie in history? Story 1. During World War II, the British put fake documents on a corpse and dropped the body in the waters to be found by the Axis. It detailed an attack that never happened. Here's the best part. The plans for D-Day were found in a similar manner, the actual plans, but they were ignored because the German leaders thought it was just another ruse. The man they used was a Welsh homeless man named Glyndwr Michaels, who had perished from the consumption of rat poison. Some speculated that it was pneumonia, which would have made drowning easier to fake, but investigation documents that were later released stated rat poison, although it was unsure whether it was eaten because it was the only food available and was commonly used as a paste on bread to attract rats, or if he ate it with the specific intent of ending up the way he did. They had to put in quite a bit of thought and effort to make the corpse appear to have died in the conditions presented in the mission. However, there was still a great deal of concern that the Germans would detect the deception and not take the bait. Story 2. One of the most impressive ones I heard was when Great Britain convinced everyone during World War II that carrots were the reason their pilot's vision was so great, when it was really the recently discovered airborne interception radar technologies. I still know people that are convinced eating carrots as kids will ensure 20/20 vision for life. When I was a kid, my older sister knew it wasn't true, but convinced me it was. She thought it was funny to see me constantly begging for more carrots and getting me to do her chores so I could have hers. Well, now we're adults. She's had glasses for 15 years, and I'm in my 30s with 20/15 vision. I know it's not from the carrots, but it's pretty fun to ask her if she's got new glasses lately while I'm chomping on a carrot like Bugs Bunny. Story 3. God wants you to give money to the church. I was waiting for someone at a convenience store. I think I just finished my classes or work or something. It was a few years ago. I was eating a sandwich I ordered, and a middle-aged man approached me, asking for a donation to the church. I wasn't really good at saying no to those things, so I just said I didn't have the extra time and that maybe next time. He looked annoyed and told me that the Lord blesses those who gives, and wouldn't I like to go to heaven? I got really annoyed, but I couldn't say anything to him because he looked kind of scary, so I eyed an employee in case I would need help. Thankfully, the guy left, and the person I was waiting for arrived shortly after. These types of people are the reason why I'm super annoyed at super religious people. They're really judgy and would condemn you if they got the chance. My sister's childhood friend comes from a super religious family. They're typically very private about it. You'd never know they went to church so frequently. One day, the friend tells my sister in a very matter-of-fact way, "Well, you're going to hell, so it doesn't matter to me." These are two adults. They were having a normal conversation. My sister inquired further, and the friend was dead serious. She didn't think my sister's opinion mattered because she was going to be punished in the afterlife, and she herself was not. Bizarre and creepy. Wow, she said that to her childhood friend? Ugh. I could never get behind someone who has such little respect for basic human life. And if we're talking Christianity, that sure as hell is not what the New Testament taught. But you get a lot of this mindset, especially in smaller towns, I've noticed. Don't get me wrong, churches do a lot of good. I was a Cub Scout, and we had our meetings in a church basement. And while being raised Catholic, I didn't find my experience was particularly bad. I have friends, especially out in the country in those small towns I mentioned, who had things done to them like have their left hand tied behind their backs and forced to write essays with their non-dominant right hand, so that they were writing in the way God intended instead of through the devil's influence. Instances like that, coupled with my own experience around the fear of damnation and some of the hypocrisy, really just messed up hard and fast religion for me. The way I figure, if God or Allah or the flying spaghetti monster can't simply value people based on their good deeds as opposed to the religion they follow, and so many people who practice said religion take things to such emotionally and sometimes physically damaging extremes, then it's just not something that I can get behind. I have friends who practice various religions, I just don't myself. Story 4. In a Portuguese town, there are the remains of a 14th century castle that withstood a desperate prolonged siege in 1368. A local woman broke the enemy's resolve by baking some cakes with the last of the flour. The bread was then sent to the Spaniards in a fake show of plenty, with the message, "If you need any more, just let us know." Fearing a much more prolonged siege, the Spaniards withdrew. Story 5. There was a countercharge in the Civil War. The overview is essentially a group was ordered to hold a hill no matter what, and wait for reinforcements. The enemy was shooting the hell out of them to try and take the hill before they were reinforced. The enemy is advancing up the hill, and the defenders realize they can't win by holding ground anymore. They have like one shot left each. But they can't lose the hill, or the reinforcements would never be able to reinforce the position and support a bigger advance. The commander, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, orders them to fix bayonets and countercharge, since it's the only option that isn't obviously going to fail. They do so, and the defenders actually rout their enemy, even capturing the general in charge who ordered a retreat when he saw them coming down the hill. Keeping in mind how smoky old battlefields got from the type of powder they used, they were practically fighting in a fog bank. The attacker leadership saw the charging forces and assumed that the only sane reason for a countercharge was that those reinforcements had arrived, meaning his people were about to be overrun. So he ordered a retreat to save who he could. Story 6. That diamonds are valuable. They are extremely valuable in terms of their usefulness, but not as engagement rings, which was really a con made up by the diamond industry. Engagement rings, or engagement bands, were a thing going back to ancient Rome, and diamond rings in particular became common, at least with the aristocracy during the Victorian era. However, their popularity in the US did temporarily decline after World War I until the diamond industry started promoting them again in the 1940s. Yep, the De Beers Diamond Company. In the 30s, they ran a marketing campaign that sold the idea that true love and commitment could only be shown if a man spent a month's salary on his wife's ring. In the 40s, De Beers came out with the slogan, "Diamonds are forever," and by the 80s, the 1-month salary rule had bumped up to 3-month salary. Artificial inflation of your product's value through a series of well-placed marketing campaigns. Story 7. McDonald's lied and spread false information about the lady launching a frivolous lawsuit against them just to get rich after she burned herself with their scalding hot coffee. The lie was so successful, people to this day believe the lady was just looking to make a quick buck. That lady got the crappiest deal ever. She is synonymous with frivolous lawsuits to this day, and she was absolutely right and deserved compensation. Her injuries were extensive, and the temperature that coffee was served at was 100% dangerous to consume, or in this case, have it spilled on you. In the beginning, she was only asking for McDonald's to cover her medical expenses, so this lawsuit was exactly the opposite of frivolous. Not to mention, multiple McDonald's had been reprimanded numerous times prior to that by food safety inspectors for keeping their coffee dangerously hot, so as to not have situations like this. The woman had to have multiple skin grafts, her genitals were basically burned shut, and like you said, she just wanted the hospital bills covered, and they initially tried to settle for some paltry amount like $10,000, which wouldn't even start to cover it. So her lawyers were like, screw this, let's go big. So I actually went and whipped out my law textbook from college for this one. Stella Liebeck of Albuquerque, New Mexico was awarded nearly $3 million in punitive damages against McDonald's when she suffered serious burns upon opening a cup of coffee that she had placed between her legs while in a vehicle. Due to severe scalding, she remained hospitalized for 8 days. The jury was influenced by McDonald's prior knowledge that at least 700 of its customers had also been burned. It is also worth noting what is less commonly known. Namely, that the plaintiff was found 20% contributorily negligent, and that an out-of-court settlement reduced her damages award significantly. Yeah, that was a pretty messed up case, but I didn't even know about the genital burning shut thing. That brings a whole new perspective to the case. Story 8. Trickle-down and supply-side economics. It was literally trickle-up. The Rand Corporation, which was a right-leaning company, did a study from 1980 to 2020. If the neoliberals like Reagan had maintained tax levels rather than all the tax cuts, the average worker would have had $15,000 per year more. Instead, the amount that went up to the top 5% over that time was $35 trillion. Then it's no wonder you get Brexit and the false populism. Story 9. Pit bulls were never bred or used for any purpose besides fighting dogs. The nanny dog myth is directly responsible for tens of thousands of children being permanently disfigured or killed. The earliest record of anyone calling a pit bull a nursemaid or nanny dog was in a 1971 New York Times article. The phrase itself was practically non-existent before the year 2000, when the no-kill movement went mainstream and shelters started overflowing with fighting breed dogs that were still being mass-produced by dog fighters, but no longer being put down on intake. To be fair, I've known lots of really just lovable pitties, great dogs. A nanny dog? Absolutely not. But under the right circumstances, great dogs. Under the wrong circumstances, great fighters. That's the issue. I once watched someone's pit bull swim probably 200 feet down a river to grab a whole tree branch. When the dog finally finished dragging this thing back up through the brush to its owner, the guy picked up the stick that his dog was still latched onto, pulled back the gums of his dog, and showed me the muscle in there and how they can just lock their jaw onto something so they never let go. He shook the stick, and this dog was just flailing around on the stick. But also, really well-behaved dog. As soon as he let go, he was just happy, panting. You could stick your hand in his mouth, and he didn't care. Great behaved dog, but under the wrong ownership, things can get really bad really quickly. Story 10. Here, take this opioid. Our technicians swear it's not addictive. Funny thing is, some people need pain medicine and are not getting it. I had Tylenol for a hysterectomy. Yeah, 10 out of 10, don't recommend. Exactly. I have a chronic pain condition, and getting the medicine I need to be a normal human being and not a bedridden one is a battle every single month. I get treated like a drug addict more often than not, and we treat drug addicts like they have some kind of moral failing. It's total BS. I just want to be a functioning person. My medicine doesn't even make me feel high, it just takes the majority of the edge off my pain. My pain is still there, just tolerable. It's so frustrating. I know for joint pain, I personally swear by the over-the-counter stuff, glucosamine, which often also comes as glucosamine MSM chondroitin. It only works for mild joint pain, so like premature arthritis runs in my family, and I suffer from that in my knees, hips, and fingers. It works really well for me. I also had a roommate who had chronic pain pretty much throughout all the joints in their body, elbows, shoulders, everything. And I gave them a bottle of this stuff, and they said that it reduced the pain enough that they could function a lot easier than they could before it. So for those of you with joint pain, that could be a consideration, but if it's anything besides your joints, it's not going to be worth the money. Okay, now we hop into the rapid fire segment of the video for all the copious amounts of stories that I had to scroll through endlessly that were too short to put in a full entry, but decent enough that I didn't want to leave them out. Let's jump in. We are currently experiencing higher than normal call volumes. Fat will make you fat. Eating that full sugar pre-made meal absolutely won't. I acknowledge that I have read and agreed to the terms and conditions. Iceland and Greenland. The cake. You are not beautiful, but you could be with this product. Get good marks in high school, get yourself into a top-tier college, and your life is practically set and sorted for you. The idea that Beethoven was Austrian and Hitler was German. Nicely done, Austria. Hot singles in your area. If you work hard, you'll be rich. The customer is always right. That surgically bigger lips look good. The protocols of the Elders of Zion. This thing basically indirectly caused World War II, among other things. For that last one, I don't know if I would say caused, but for those of you wartime history buffs, it's definitely something worth looking into. A brief skim of the Wikipedia article talks about it being a Russian-published 1903 anti-Semitic text. At this point, I've only read the first paragraph of the Wikipedia article, but I think I'm going to be looking more into it myself, because it looks like a pretty interesting rabbit hole. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave your story, personal or historic, in the comments down below. I like to do viewer videos as well. I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.